I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We have a quorum present. We need someone to lead us with the prayer and the pledge. Anyone volunteer?
I can do the prayer.
Terry's got it. All right.
Our most Heavenly Father, thank you for the promise of a beautiful day today, starting our week off right and helping our city to progress and be a better place to live for all of our citizens and everyone that's in the room today. Please be with the commission as we make decisions that affect these people. Help us to make the choices that you would have us do and go down the roads that you would have us travel. Please watch over us daily. Help us with everything that we are encountering and everything that we do, and lead us in the direction that we need to follow. In your most heavenly name, your Son's name, Jesus Christ, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Consent agenda. The Planning Commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. I have a motion.
Make a motion to accept.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Regular agenda. Subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 42A. A request for approval of a final plat for Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 42A, being 9.879 acres located approximately 300 feet east of Karsten Creek Drive, near Pine Valley Street and Crystal Point Drive, and a variance from Chapter 9V, 9.5 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to accept required sidewalks along Wolf Creek Drive, an urban minor collector.
Thank you, Chairman. If you could read B as well, we'll do both of them simultaneously. They're kind of tied together.
B is Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 42B, request for approval of a final plat for Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 42B, being 6.46 acres, located approximately 500 feet of Karsten Creek Drive near Pine Valley Street and Crystal Point Drive.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. My name is Hillary Bucher. I'm the Planning Manager. We're going to go over Bentwood Country Club Estates 42A first, and then subsequently 42B. You'll see they're right next to each other, so we will move on. This is a final plat of about 10 acres east of Pine Valley Street and Karsten Creek Drive. The current zoning is RS1. The neighborhood flew SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert, in the Country Club neighborhood. So this proposed replat is 24 residential lots and a variance from Chapter 9.V or 5 to exempt the sidewalks on Wolf Creek Drive, a minor collector street. Staff is recommending approval of the plat. The RS1 zoning is consistent with the neighborhood future land use, and it's a continuation of the existing development in the Bentwood area. The plat provides for orderly and safe, efficient development of the city, and the streets will ensure safe and convenient functional system for vehicular and pedestrian circulation. We are recommending denial of the variance from Chapter 9V. The minor collector is unsafe and inefficient for walkers. Again, this will be a little bit higher speed road. We have seen this plat before in a little bit different configuration, so you will have seen this variance before. There are no sidewalks in this area, so this would allow for the first of many future developments to have sidewalks. It's a new development in the edge, so this would be a good place to start. If we don't require sidewalks now, we may not have them in the future. And we've had the home builders state before that arterials and collectors may make sense for sidewalks. So again, staff is recommending denial of the variance. Staff recommends approval of 42A and denial of the variance, subject to 11 conditions of approval. They need a copy of the tax cert. They have to build Wolf Creek Drive or submit a financial guarantee or seek a variance. Same for Pine Valley Street and Crystal Point Drive. They also have to design and install water mains and service lines for each of the lots. They have to design and install the sewer main and the service lines. We do have a sewer lift station issue in this area, so part of their plat approval will be to rectify the sewer lift station capacity issues. And then 8 would be prepare plans for the sidewalk if the variance is not granted. 9 would be submit a drainage study. 10 is fire hydrants. And 11 is a developer's agreement for the completion of Crystal Point extending to their eastern edge. So these are just the full conditions. We'll move on to 42B. So 42B is a final plat of 6.5 acres, again, east of Pine Valley and Karsten Creek. So on this map, 42A would sit in this area, so it's just directly adjacent to it. Again, the zoning is RS1 and the neighborhood flew SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert, Country Club neighborhood. So this proposed plat is just east of the one you just saw, but it only plats out the drainage areas and the remaining portion of Crystal Point Drive. So that's a very important connection to the properties to the east. It would be on this separate plat. We are recommending approval of this. Again, the RS1 zoning is consistent with neighborhood, and it is a continuation. This actually will allow the drainage from this area it'll be on one of these lots. It again provides for safe development and the street to ensure the connectivity. Staff recommends approval of 42B, subject to 4 conditions. A copy of the tax cert. We need to clearly label some easements on the plat. We have to clearly label the block number, and then improve Crystal Point Drive, submit a financial guarantee, or seek a variance. So again, these are real close together, and you can see their connection. We just wanted to be able for you to see both of them at one time. So we will go back to 42A if you want to start with that one first.
Are there not sidewalks proposed for 42B?
Onto Crystal Point Drive, not currently.
There's no variance
That's
needed
correct.
for the 42B?
That is correct. A lot of the land to the east of this actually sits outside the city limits, and so as it comes in, there may be some consideration for that, but currently, the main connection would be the future development of Bentwood to the south up to the northern loop connection. And we've talked about several times that TxDOT has plans to continue building sidewalks on their right-of-ways. So hopefully at some point there will be a sidewalk on 306, and we'll have that connection point from this neighborhood up to there.
Anyone have questions for the staff? Thank you, Hillary.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. You've seen this before, pretty close, section 42, and it was approved with the variance from the sidewalks. To help Bentwood kind of develop, and can we go back maybe to the map of the area? Plat. So really, this is on the eastern boundary of what Bentwood owns, and so what we're doing is doing 42A and 42B kind of allows us pretty much to fully complete out what I'll call the northern segment and the eastern segment of Bentwood, so we don't have any unplanted land left. So that little strip that's coming in 42B is really a large retention pond that's going to address, or it is kind of currently addressing, because they've started construction of that, kind of the drainage from that area. So these two combined will help finish that out. So we'd still like to stick with our original plan, which was the variance from the sidewalks to the north of here. Y'all have seen the plat and heard about the kind of the apartment homes that are coming in here to the north. So we don't have a large commercial center that the subdivision ordinance kind of says when you have sidewalks that they're for larger commercial areas. So we don't have the larger commercial areas, school routes or something that really mandates the sidewalks. So we would ask you to kind of reaffirm that variance from the sidewalks for Wolf Creek. And then we just wanted a clarification, and we've been working with staff on this sewer lift station issue, but we just wanted kind of confirmation that where it says rectify sewer lift station capacity issue, that means, because there's going to take a joint effort between the developers and the city. The city recognizes that this Bentwood lift station is very old and in need of pretty much full replacement. So instead of the developer just coming in and putting in some new pumps and we still have old everything else, we're kind of entertaining the conversation of a whole brand new lift station and a cost share approach. And so we're working through that, but what we want to be able to do is have an understanding, and we'll probably have some sort of agreement or financial guarantee placed from the developers that will, once we get a design, once we know, kind of have an idea of, hey, we're going to be able to have this lift station replaced in 6 months or less, we want to be able to record our plat, because we know that it takes builders 6 months or longer to get a house before it's occupiable and starts generating wastewater. So instead of us kind of sitting dead, if you will, while we're getting this lift station resolved, we want to be able to get the plat recorded and get construction going, but in the meanwhile know that we're not going to have a serious issue with sewer, that we'll be able to have that lift station replaced. So I think engineering's here, but we've had a discussion, just wanted to kind of get clarification that, and show for the record that it is rectify. It could be some sort of a guarantee or letter of credit or development agreement between the developer and the city.
Yeah, I think the required improvements could allow us to do some sort of agreement, developer's agreement, or financial guarantee. That condition was simply to state that has to be fixed, or the plan has to be in place before this plat is recorded. So we can do something to help ensure those improvements are complete.
Thanks, and would be happy to answer any questions. And there again, we would like your reaffirmation of the approval of the variance from the sidewalks for this. Thank you.
When was section 42 approved? How long ago?
May?
Of this year?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? If you would, please step forward, state your name. All right, we're going to close public comment. Anyone have comments or wish to make a motion up here? Can you pull up the site plan or an overview that kind of shows the neighborhood area? Perfect. So where is the apartment complex that's being developed? North.
Yeah, it's north of there.
Okay. And there are no sidewalks anywhere in this subdivision, is that correct?
Currently in Bentwood, that is correct. We've heard several citizens come forward and say they don't have anywhere to walk and they'd like sidewalks. So staff believed that this was another chance to at least ask the Planning Commission if they thought this is a good place to start. As I said, it is a collector, so those rates of speed will be a little bit higher. If it was a local street, a lot of Bentwood does walk in the street. I understand that, but again, this is a little bit higher rate of speed, so we thought it was a chance to bring this forward to you one more time to ensure that, you know, this is a place that we start looking at sidewalks for this development.
I know it's closed, but would this be a higher speed limit street? Because Pine Valley and North Bentwood Drive and some of these other ones are collectors, and I don't know that they have a higher rate of speed on them.
Okay.
So, so other than the rest of the neighborhood not having them, can somebody give me a good excuse as to why we don't need sidewalks in this brand-new neighborhood and finally get some sidewalks? I mean, anybody? Can somebody tell me why it's a bad idea?
Sidewalks in and of themselves are not a bad idea. You know, now we have to look at cost impacts to each individual home and keeping homes affordable.
What does it cost in that neighborhood, those homes? If I buy a home in that neighborhood, am I looking at a couple of grand baked into my?
Those lots are 100 feet wide, so a sidewalk's probably gonna, so if it's a 5-foot wide sidewalk at $6 to $8 a square foot, 8 times 5 is $40, so $4,000 for a sidewalk across.
So when I was out there yesterday and looked at that property, and I was parked where they have the dead end, there was one house, very pretty house, and look, I didn't pull up tax rolls because I wasn't too concerned about it. I'm guessing that house is probably 375, 400, pushing 425 maybe. The rest of them, 275 to 350. If I'm buying, look, if we're buying houses that are 350, are we worried about 3,000 or 4,000 on a sidewalk that's going to be baked in? Is that a deal breaker? At that level, is that a deal breaker?
It could be, but you know, how do we just keep? Well, let's stack another 4,000. And really, is it a cost impact, or is it, you know, this is the last street in this Bentwood area. And does it connect to any other sidewalks? No. Will it ever connect to other sidewalks? No. Is TxDOT going to build a sidewalk along Loop 306 frontage there? I would, in the next 50 years, I would put a lot of money that it most likely will not happen. You know, so let's focus our efforts where sidewalks could be. Around schools, absolutely. Commercial areas where people are walking, absolutely. You know, Bentwood is being a golf course neighborhood. There's golf courts all over the place. So I think your walking is maybe not as normal as maybe you would be in areas that are very close to commercial, or, you know, so people are going to walk. They're going to have a sidewalk to walk on for some short distance, and then there's absolutely no other sidewalk. So, you know, and how much walking is going to be occurring here? Where would they be walking to? To their neighbor's house, or, you know, so I appreciate your concern and even the need and want to start somewhere with sidewalks, but is this really the appropriate place to start?
I think one thing to consider as well is this is the major north-south connector that will connect down into the future development of the southern part of Bentwood, so the southeastern part. So this will connect a large portion of undeveloped land to the potential of the 306 area. And maybe through some future trail or something to that effect. There is a major AEP easement that runs through this property. So there is a green belt that it could connect to. So just something to consider as you move into this southeastern part of the future Bentwood preliminary plat. I don't know how many homes are down there. I haven't counted specifically, but I would say at least several hundred that it will possibly connect to.
This is it's an issue that's come up a lot over the time that I've been up here, and I live in the Santa Rita neighborhood where we have very few sidewalks, and I wish every day that we had more, especially along thoroughfares like Avenue J and Avenue L. And I hate that we would miss the opportunity to put a sidewalk in an area that's being built out that might have an adverse impact on the folks that live there, not today, not when these houses are built, but in 10, 15 years when other areas of the subdivision are built out. So it, in my opinion, it's a start. And I think it makes sense.
Motion to approve is written by staff.
Okay? Without the variance?
To deny the variance. yeah.
Deny the variance.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve and deny the variance. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, show of hands. Opposed? So we have 4-3 in favor.
Okay. So we will move to 42B. So again, this one does not have a variance, but we are recommending approval of 42B, subject to 4 conditions of approval.
Anyone want to make a motion on this one?
Make a motion to approve as written or presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. All right, Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 40C. Request for approval of a final plat for Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 40C, being 2.085 acres located located west of intersection of Colonial Drive and Silver Creek Pass.
All right, good morning. Hillary Bucher again. This is a final plat of just over 2 acres. We are west of Colonial Drive and Silver Pass. You can see the corner on the right-hand picture there. The zoning in this is actually RM1, so it's low-rise multifamily with a neighborhood flu, SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert, in the Country Club neighborhood. This proposed final plat is actually looking to add 6 single-family lots, so it will not be at as high of a density as it could be. They will all be flags off of the corner there, so they will all have direct and abutting access. One thing to point out that will be a condition of approval, since there is no street that comes in here, the front yard setback would actually be here. So that is one of the conditions of approval, that they revise that 10 to meet the 25-foot front yard setback. So a front yard setback would be off of a street. We are recommending approval. RM1 zoning is consistent with the neighborhood future land use. It's a continuation of the existing development in that area. The plat again provides for orderly development and ensures the safe and convenient travel of vehicular traffic. So staff recommends approval of Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 40C, subject to 5 conditions of approval. 1, they need a copy of the tax cert. They need to illustrate the 25-foot building line along Silver Creek Pass, as we talked about just then. Again, this is an area that feeds into the Bentwood sewer lift station, so they'll have to rectify the lift station capacity issues. They have to design and install sewer mains and service lines for each new home. And the fire apparatus access road, so basically the driveway into this area, has to be at least 26-foot wide paved to allow the fire trucks access to all these new homes. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this one up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have questions or wish to make a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. First replat of tract 27 and 28, Concho River Estates, a request for approval for first replat in tracts 27 and 28, Concho River Estates, located at the intersection of Christoval Road and Strawn Road, and a variance from Chapter 10-3A2 of the Land Development Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a minimum paving width of 32 feet and no curb and gutter for Strawn Road, an urban local street.
Good morning, Shelley Pascal, planner. This property we are looking at today is a replat of portions of tract 27 and 28. It is approximately 5.626 acres. The location is 4825 Christoval Road. The future land use is commercial. The zoning is heavy commercial. It's within District 1, Tommy Hebert, and the neighborhood is Glenmore. The Concho River Estates, they are wanting to create 3 tracks from portions of track 27 and 28, and requesting a variance for the minimum pavement width. They want to keep the 32 feet versus required 40 feet. The future land use and the zoning on this property is commercial, and then, excuse me, the zoning is heavy commercial. Here's a photo of the subject property. And this is both looking east and west down Strawn Road. City staff, we are recommending approval of the plat. The purpose is to create 3 separate tracks, and track 27A is proposed to be 1.859 acres. Track 27B is 1.285, and track 28A is 2.82. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan being commercial in the area, and commercial is the primary use in this area. We are recommend denial of the variance. This area is not fully developed. There is vacant land and opportunities for future development in this area. We do understand that there is existing underground telecommunication lines. However, they're throughout the city under the pavement. And the widening will reflect the requirements of the subdivision ordinance of the 40-foot local street. City staff, we are recommending approval of the plat and denial of the variance, subject to 3 conditions. Condition 1 is a copy of the tax cert. Condition 2 is improvement of Strawn or a financial guarantee or seek a variance, which they are, and to submit a drainage study. These are the different conditions. And there's a couple of notes on this one. Prior to issuance of a building permit, we would like to see sidewalks along Christoval Road, and also to show a plan of the existing structures and existing septic systems on this property to the Tom Green County Environmental Health Department. And also fire hydrants may be required depending on the placement of new structures on the property. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Shelley? Thank you, Shelley. I open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name.
Good morning, the Commission. Herb with SKG Engineering. We'd like to speak on the requested road variance first on Strawn Road. Strawn Road's only about 2 blocks long. It's been there quite a while. And actually, the incremental improvements required to bring Strawn up to standards would only amount to 4 feet, which is less than half of a travel lane, which I don't think would really increase its effectiveness as a roadway in that area. The proposed replat tracks are all going to front onto Old Christoval Road, and so they're not going to be using Strawn Road for any kind of access or anything like that. I would like to request that you defer the drainage study to the building permit stage. I think this is especially important in commercial type developments because you don't know exactly how much of that property is going to be developed. And I could explain in detail how the drainage plans work, but when you do a drainage study, you actually look at the difference between native land and improved land. So if you have a small lot that you completely cover with impervious area, the recognized coefficient for doing that study could be much less than what's actually needed. And conversely, if you have a very large lot and you only do a small building and small parking area, the coefficient could be actually much less than the typical coefficient you'd use in the study. So it seems very prudent to defer that to the building permit stage so you know exactly what's going on the individual tracks. We'd like to talk about the note on the sidewalks. And I'm not opposed to sidewalks. When I walk and there's a sidewalk, I use one. I went to the site, and there typically, if there's any kind of pedestrian traffic at all, you're going to see kind of a thread, a trail that goes alongside of the roadway. There's nothing out there. I mean, this is a industrial and heavy commercial area all the way along Crisella Road. I think the criteria that they're asking for, it says sidewalks may be required to allow more convenient pedestrian access to the site where heavy pedestrian and vehicle traffic is anticipated. I don't know where the heavy pedestrian traffic would be generated from or would be going to. And I'd be happy to be informed on that. It just doesn't seem like a prudent place to put sidewalks to me. So we'd ask that you defer the drainage study to the building permit stage and remove note 3 pertaining to the sidewalks. I could answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have questions for Herb?
If I could just point out about the sidewalks.
Yes, sir.
That's a note because we didn't recommend requiring sidewalks at the plat. And so for platting purposes, there is no sidewalk requirement. The note is just that the sidewalks could be required at some point in the future through some different process if some future process does happen to trigger sidewalks.
Okay.
So
that,
whether or not you remove the note, that wouldn't
I was
make a
going to say,
difference
the
in
note
terms of
doesn't
the
impact
future.
us.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, it reads like the sidewalks will be reviewed during the building permit process, and I don't want anybody to view that as a requirement for sidewalks during that process, so, okay.
And, right, we would, whether that's in here now or not, we would not view you as either endorsing or not endorsing sidewalks at that future process.
Wouldn't it be better, though, to get that clarified at this point and not wait until building permit stage?
Well, again, you as the commission only have the authority to require or not require sidewalks through the platting process. We're recommending that sidewalks not be required through the platting process. So, for example, if you were to say today, this is absolutely the wrong place to require sidewalks, it has no authority down the road if some other process triggers those.
So would it be a problem to remove that note?
It wouldn't. It's just a statement of they may be required in the future, and whether the note's in there or not, that's still true. So
Okay.
we wouldn't have a problem if you remove it.
And then the,
No, that's strange.
It's not unusual for us to include notes of things that could be required just so a developer doesn't down the
your
road
understanding,
say,
yeah.
you know, we didn't know this was the case, but.
Let's talk about the drainage study deferral.
You may recall that under the recent changes to the ordinance, previous to those changes, there was no ability to defer a drainage plan.
Yes.
We inserted that into the ordinance to allow drainage plans to be deferred, although that was written to give that authority to the city engineer. So in this case, the Planning Commission doesn't have the ability to defer it or not. That falls to the city engineer, and I think Lance can speak to that in
That'd be
this
great.
case.
Good morning, Lance.
Lance Overstreet, Engineering. We do have the ability to defer a drainage study. In the stormwater design manual, it actually offers an alternative that is when you're platting properties, that it asks for a preliminary drainage study be completed and then a final drainage study being done at the time of permitting. And we are really trying to make a move towards that direction. Primarily because when you have lots that get subdivided, you can either deal with the drainage as a whole so that all 3 lots participate into a detention pond, or you can do that to where each lot is going to be responsible for its own mechanisms and so on things. And so we would probably ask that something to that effect be done, a preliminary be done, and then it be modified at the time of the actual construction and permitting.
Makes sense. Okay. Okay, and then finally, the variance for the paving width on Strong. Could the staff speak to the impact of granting that variance? Is there adjacent property that's going to be affected by a narrower street? Is there ability to widen this street
So
beyond the property line?
There's some of this area that is platted, but even the platted stuff, not all of it is developed. So staff was really looking at if we miss this opportunity, go back one more, Shell. Okay, that's fine. So this is a large portion of that front. That is the turning motion for trucks. That is, how they kind of get around. So we were looking at if we don't get this portion here, you can see these large tracks to the left of that could be further developed.
So the tracks to the west of this site are going to use Christoval Road for access. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They will turn off of Christoval Road onto Strawn.
Okay. Which is a narrow road.
It's a 32-foot wide road currently, I believe. And if you've ever been out to this area is really heavy commercial or light industrial. It's a pretty heavily used area.
Yes.
So you can assume a lot of large truck traffic is going to be using this road. So I know it's less than half of a drive lane, but it does allow them to even scoot over a little bit. And for a significant portion, that's probably about a third of the street. So when they make that turning motion, they would have that extra room to begin and end their turning motion. So staff was looking at, denying this variance so that we could pave that, but that's really a decision you have to look at all your options for. But that was what we were looking at was you can see several pieces that don't look fully developed to that side, which are zoned heavy commercial or light industrial.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Trinidad Aguirre, and I'm the owner of the actual property. When you go down Strawn Road, and I'm there every day, there is almost zero traffic in there. We've got WTX that just moved in. We got West Central Wireless next to us. So when you take a look at Strawn Road, when they talk about the traffic on that road, it is really negligible. And for a truck to go down there and access these other areas, I think it's kind of stretching a little bit. And when you take a look at the other thing that really concerns me in trying to widen the road is when you take a look at the utilities underground. Right when you turn, there are some fiber optic poles there, and it could be very detrimental to West Central Wireless to get in there and try to make any modifications to that. I believe that it would cause some stress for them, and I also believe that it could be very detrimental there. So at this point, Strawn Road, I believe is the right size for what it is. It is a little feeder road, and the traffic is negligible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
So Strawn Road to me, for now, the 32 feet is working. There's also, it looks like a homestead on Strawn, house, barns, that sort of thing. So I don't think that needs to be widened.
Yeah, that's my initial thought is we're anticipating growth on that side of the road that's probably not going to happen. I mean,
Lone Star Beef used to have a place that's right there as well, and they brought trucks in there all the time, and there's still trailers that come in there all the time now, but not all the way down, just a couple of lots in. I'm not sure what's in there now. I don't believe Lone Star Beef uses it anymore, but I'm not sure.
And also on the, the note, to me, that seems an odd place to put that in there as part of the variance. So I guess I can make a motion. So
Right ahead.
I would like to make a motion to approve the first replat, track 27 and 28. Would like with the variance, accepting that variance, to remove the note off of the sidewalks in condition number 1. And we can't defer drainage, is what I understand from the new rules that are in place.
And I think Lance could clarify this, but he was saying that we could require preliminary drainage study be done with the plat.
That'd be great.
Require the preliminary to be done with the plat. That's all.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve striking the note on the sidewalks, but granting the variance. Is that correct?
Yes, and
For the-
deferring the
for the
drainage
road width.
study. And deferring the drainage study until,
And there would be a preliminary drainage study provided with the plat. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 7-0. Replat of Tract 51A, of replat of Tract 51 and 52, Block 1, Group Fisherman's Road, Lake Nasworthy Addition. Request for approval of a replat of Tract 51A, Block 1, Road, Lake Nasworthy Addition, located near the intersection of Sleepy Hollow Road and Kings Road, and a variance from Chapter 10-3A2 of the Land Development Subdivision Ordinance to maintain minimum paving width of 24 feet and no curb and gutter for Kings Road, an urban local street.
Good morning, Shelley Pascal, planner. This is a proposed replat of Tract 51A, Block 1, Group Fisherman's Road. The acreage is .616. The property is located at 2666 and 2670 Kings Road. The future land use is neighborhood and the zoning is single-family residential. It is also in the District 1, Tommy Herbert, and the neighborhood is Lake Nasworthy. They are trying to create 2 lots from 51A, and they are requesting a variance to maintain a 20-foot pavement width in lieu of the 40-foot for a local street. The future land use is neighborhood, and the zoning is RS1. I did send out 14 notifications. I received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition. Here's a couple of photos of the subject property. City staff, we are recommending approval of the plat. The purpose is to create 2 separate lots within 51A. In 2013, 51A was created from these 2 lots to create 1 lot. So they're going back to the 2 lots that they created in 2013. In 2013, they created 1 lot, it was 2, and now they're going back to the 2 lots. During that time, the variance that they are requesting was granted, and it was also granted back in 1999 when it was originally subdivided. It does conform with the comprehensive plan with it designated as neighborhood. Residential use is the primary use within this area. Requirements, we are recommending denial of this variance to widen Kings Road. This is the only primary access into this area, and it could be problematical if all the homes need to utilize the street all at the same time because of its width, and widening would reflect the requirements in the subdivision ordinance for a 40-foot local street. City staff, we all recommend approval and of the plat and denial of the variance, subject to 2 conditions of approval: a tax cert and improved King Road. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Shelley? Thank you. We're going to open this up for public comment.
Good morning, Herb with SKG again. Hopefully you caught all that. In 2013, they own both houses, and they wanted to rebuild the one to the east that's going to be on Tract 51B, and so they replatted 2 lots that had a house on each lot into 1 lot so they could get a little bit more land for the new house. And now that that's been done, they want to divide it again, so you'll end up back with 2 lots and 1 house on each lot. So nothing's changed really from when it was way back when it was originally platted back in '99. What we're asking for is a variance on the roadway improvements that's already been granted twice. and there is absolutely no change to the situation. I mean, I could explain further, but are y'all good with the variance?
Could you go back to the overview of the site? This looks like an area that's completely built out. Is that the case?
Has been, ever since it was originally platted back in '99. Yes.
Okay. There we go. Fully developed. All right. Thank you, Herb. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Any thoughts or a motion? Looks like it'd be hard to require a wider road through this area when it's fully improved.
I agree 100%. I agree with Herb twice today, in one day, twice.
I'm looking at you like,
And one time it didn't even matter, Herb.
All right, anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve with also granting the variance.
On the road width?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve granting the variance for the road width. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. First replat of lots 37 to 48, Mallena Heights Addition. Request for a first replat of lots 37 to 48, Block 1, Mallena Heights Addition, being approximately 3.268 acres on East 39th Street, west of Crockett Street, and variances from Chapter 9, 5, 10, 3A2, and 10.3B of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a minimum paving width of 26 feet in lieu of 40 with no sidewalk or curb and gutter for East 39th Street.
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. Sherry Bailey, Principal Planner. As you indicated, this is the first replat of Mallena Heights Addition. This will look familiar to you. It was here in March and then was withdrawn because there was still some negotiation going on. However, it has returned with minus the one lot. That property owner is still a holdout. So there are 11 lots that are being replatted into 17. It's approximately 3.23 acres. It's East 39th Street and Crocker Street. The zoning there is RS1. The future land use is neighborhood. It's in District 2, Mr. Thompson's district, and it is the Lakeview neighborhood. There you have the proposed replat before you. The rationale for approval in this case is conformity with the subdivision ordinance. The existing lots are already platted. They are simply being replatted to divide them into a larger number of lots. They will meet the requirements for the RS1 zoning. And the developer has either the choice to develop them as they are or to replat them. He has chosen to replat them and is asking for a variance. The rationale for the variance in this case is the existing road pavement does not meet the minimum pavement that is established in our code under Chapter 10.3. .A.2 of 40 feet, and the curb and gutter are required by ordinance to protect the asphalt as part of the site drainage management. The existing right-of-way is in fact 60 feet. I've included a couple of pictures of the surrounding area because I want you to be aware of the fact that when this area was developed originally in the 50s and 60s, it did in fact have curb and gutter. This is the only area You can go north for a couple of streets, you can go west for a number of streets, and you can go south, and all of them do have curb and gutter. The only reason this area did not is because the houses that are there, the existing 7 houses were built individually, and so at the time that they got a building permit, they were not required to put that in. And there you can see the property on the south with the houses that have been built so far. But the adjoining streets, again, have curb and gutter. Staff is recommending approval of the replat of Mallena Heights, subject to 5 conditions of approval and denial of the variances from Chapter 10.3.A.1 and 2, and we're set aside the variance on the sidewalks and not requiring the sidewalks. Conditions of approval as recommended are a copy of the tax certification, improve East 39th Street, the south side, or submit a financial guarantee or seek a variance, which they have done. Design and install sewer, main, and service connections, or submit a financial guarantee. Install water service connections to the individual lots, and submit a preliminary drainage study. Are there any questions?
I have one question. Can you speak to the width of the roads surrounding
Yes.
in this area?
The present roads vary between 30, 32, and 36. Many of them are 30 and 32 feet.
And this one is
I
26
think
feet?
26 feet. There are some area, looks like we can get 30 feet out of it, but yes, 26 is what the developer has indicated.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case, please come forward.
Good morning, Erica Carter with CFE Engineering. I wanted to address the variance denial. This is considered, or what the city and most developers would consider, an infill project. Everything, and then on this part, like there's kind of like that, is all developed. There's no curb and gutter in that neighborhood. The street width is the same within that neighborhood. So effectively, we're going to come in and just put widen it here and add curb and gutter here. That's, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's not going to conform with the rest of the neighborhood. So you're looking at having just curb and gutter right there and a widened street right there. It'll never be done on this side. It's all developed. So we ask that you consider approving our variance. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Erica? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry, is 40th Street, does it have curb and gutter?
It does have curb and gutter. Yeah, it's on. It does have curb and gutter.
Okay,
On
but the
40th.
north side of 39th Street does not have curb and gutter,
It
is
does
that
not
correct?
on the north side, and the lots to
The undeveloped lots, yes.
east, yeah.
Would they be required to put curb and gutter in if they built on those lots?
If they were replatted and we had that mechanism to require it, yes.
Okay.
If they aren't, if
If they went
haven't-
on the existing lots that have already
They
been
would not.
platted, they would not be required?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Lance Overstreet Engineering. This particular Mallena Heights thing, there was some coordination that was done with this prior to me being a part of engineering again. A part of that was that the city would, since 39th Street is existing, the city was going to partner with a developer in this area. The developer would be putting in the base. The city would actually then be coming in and doing a two-course on the additional width of that. But for consistency of that, we really feel that the curb and gutter is critical. As you guys know, if you have a street that does not have curb and gutter, you do get the unraveling on the edges and things like that. A lot of these in this area are also two-course, which even makes that worse. You continue to get that unraveling, and there may be some difficulty for the developer to even handle their stormwater without curb and gutter. And so if they're going to be putting it in the street and there is no curb and gutter, then they're going to have problems with even unraveling on the edges, with it flowing back into the lots and things like that. So I think in this particular instance, the curb and gutter is going to be pretty critical for what's going on in terms of the development of that. So,
Just to clarify, Lance, are you saying that the city is going to help with the cost of the widening of the road if that was a requirement for these lots?
that is correct, yes.
Okay.
There was some negotiations that were made to help to, during our seal coat process, if the developer put in the base structure of that, then the city during their seal coat process would come in and do a two-course on that for that extra little bit of width.
Okay.
And that is a part of the whole idea of participating in the infill and trying to get some of these lots developed, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The developer is aware of the city helping, and we're in agreement to that. We just needed it to be stated.
So you're
here.
okay with the road widening, you just don't want a curb and gutter?
Correct. Or we would prefer, or like to have the option of a ribbon curb, not necessarily a stand-up curb.
Okay. Do we have ribbon curbs within the city limits?
Yes, in some instances, we do have the rollover curbs or the ribbon curbs. Typically, what would determine that is when they do their drainage study, if they have to have a stand-up curb to keep the water in the street,
Yes.
then they would have to have the stand-up curb. If they wanted to put a rollover curb or a ribbon curb and they can contain the drainage appropriately with their area, then that is sometimes allowable, yes. Cost-wise, there's very little difference between the two, though.
Is a drainage study required for this replat?
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Let me just clarify on
Yes, sir.
The width. We're recommending a denial of the variance to the width to keep it at 26. And as Lance mentioned, the city is okay with a partial variance so that the ultimate width wouldn't have to be 40 feet, but a lesser width of like 32, something like that. So in terms of if you're wanting to support the staff recommendation, you could, the motion could include a partial variance to the street width to 32 feet instead of 40. But we just don't support keeping it at the current 26 feet.
So if we don't grant the variance, it goes to 40 unless we specify to 32? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And the city would like it to be 32?
We are supportive of that partial variance to make it 32, yes.
All right, I think I understand.
Essentially, what it was going to be is somewhere in that, what was discussed was somewhere in a 4 to 6 foot widening of it.
Yes, sir.
The curb path of that would be a part of that as well. So a portion of the curb is a drivable surface, and that would get us very close to the 32, so.
Okay, thank you. Well, the curb variance, I certainly understand the importance of a curb, especially if there's runoff. I don't have a familiarity with the drainage on this land, so I don't know what kind of impact we're talking about if there is no curb. But if all of the surrounding area has curbs and the city's cooperating with the developer to try to help defray some of the cost to widen the road, I feel like a curb makes sense. It's a lot of lots, and it would look a lot nicer to have a curb than to not have one. But I guess I'm going to close public comment. There's no one else that wants to speak on this case. Is that correct? So now, a discussion among us or a motion?
Okay, can we see the, can you go back one, please? I would like to make a motion to accept the proposal and accept a partial variance to 32 foot, and then also do possible ribbon curb and gutter instead of the standard.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with a 32-foot wide road and a ribbon curb. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. Z 19-16 Menjarez. Public hearing and consideration of a request for a rezoning from the Ranch and Estate zoning district to the light manufacturing zoning district on 10 acres located at 3927 Old Ballinger Highway.
Good morning, Shelley Pascal, planner. Just to kind of locate you, this is the landfill up here. Old Ballinger Highway, 277's over here. And they are proposing to rezone this to light manufacturing. They are proposing a truck mechanic shop. This is 10 acres of property. The address is 3927 Old Ballinger Highway. It is within District 4, Lucy Gonzalez, and the neighborhood is Paul Ann. The future land use is industrial, and the current zoning is ranch and estate. Here's a couple of photos. Here's the subject property, and then looking directly north at the landfill. These are a couple of properties to the west of the subject property. This is also an industrial use west of the subject property, just down Old Ballinger Highway, and another home in this area. I did mail out 8 notifications. I did not receive any in favor nor opposition. Rationale for approval, it is within the comp plan, it is designated as industrial, and the requested zone change is consistent with that designation. The proposed use is not allowed within ranch and estate, but it would be allowed within light manufacturing, and the lot is consistent with light manufacturing standards. This area is a mixture of heavy commercial, general commercial, and residential. The use would be compatible with the surrounding area. It is also consistent with the adopted future land use. There would be little to no adverse impact on the natural environment. There's already similar impacts in this immediate area. It allows a new business to come in and occupy and serve the community, and this parcel is consistent with the adjoining development in this area. City staff, we do recommend approval from rezoning from ranch and estate to light manufacturing zoning district.
The existing improvements, they're commercial in nature, aren't they? They're not residential, but are the existing improvements conforming with ranch and estate zoning?
I'm sorry?
No, it was a old dance hall, so
Okay.
it was a commercial use.
It was.
I think another thing to point out, Shelley, on your zoning map that you had, there is heavy commercial directly behind this as well.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case? Please come forward, state your name.
Morning. My name is Stephanie Manhattis, and I'm a representative of the ownership of the property. And we do have a sale pending on the property, which would really help us. We've been trying to sell this property now for about 7 years. So it'd really help the sale so that we can move forward and hopefully get a business into this community to help, serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
I make the motion to approve as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as proposed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Special uses. City Council has final authority for approval of special uses. SU 19-04, RW Senior Housing. Request for approval of a special use to allow a nursing home on property zoned heavy commercial being 8.25 acres generally located on YMCA Drive, 705 feet northwest of the intersection of YMCA Drive and Sunset Drive.
Sherry Bailey, again, Principal Planner. As you can see by what is in front of you, this area does look familiar to you. You just recently approved a dentist office and rezoned for that area. And so I want to set the neighborhood a little bit for you. This is on YMCA Drive. It's about 850 feet north of where YMCA and Sunset Drive come together at the intersection. It's 8.25 acres. It's in District 1, and the neighborhood is Rio Vista. The future land use does have this as neighborhood in which a skilled nursing facility would be compatible. The present zoning is heavy commercial. This gives you an idea. This is the property in question, which is directly north of a large apartment complex. Across the street, and YMCA is a large street, across the street is single-family housing. This is the apartment complex. They have 3 access points, 2 on YMCA and 1 on Sunset Drive. What is proposed here is 119 or 120 bed skilled nursing facility, or what we used to call a nursing home. In reviewing that and the use, I pulled some of the average daily trips associated with a nursing home, which is almost negligible. There is higher traffic on weekends as opposed to during the day. Impacts the design of both the look of this single-story skilled nursing facility and the way it's laid out. It gives the impression of being commercial design and yet still with a residential look to it, so it fits into the neighborhood. It is consistent with the zoning ordinance in that special uses for a skilled nursing facility, it's not allowed by right in any zoning district. So whatever zoning district comes forward, it has to come in under a special use permit. It is compatible with the surrounding area in that it is similar in look and nature to the single-family housing and to the apartment complex, which is actually a more intense use than the nursing facility will be. It will likely not generate any major traffic in the area just by the nature of the use of the building. and the effect on the natural environment is negligible. There's an established community need in this area. This particular facility is intended for middle income and Medicare qualified clients, and that is a demographic that is missing in our community at this time. And the current development patterns would not change by the construction of this property. We sent out 17 notices. We received 3 back in favor. We did not receive any in opposition. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Staff is recommending approval, and there are 4 conditions of approval. Sidewalks along YMCA Drive. We would like them to submit a plat for the area, and they are aware of that and will do so. Signage must obtain permits, and we are asking for a landscape plan.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak on this case? Please come forward. Open it up for public comment. All right, I'm going to close public comment.
Who was going to stand up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone want to speak on this?
I think they're here if you have any questions for them. Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Ray Watt. I'm with RW Senior Housing Development. I'm here with my partner, Steve Robinson, and as well as the architect, and we appreciate this opportunity. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't believe so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Conditional uses. Oh, before we do that, Ms. Jackson is going to step out. Conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 1913, Campbell. Public hearing consideration of request for approval of conditional use to allow for an animal kennel with indoor boarding, pet retail store, pet grooming, pet daycare. The heavy commercial zoning district being 2.5 acres located at 5433 Ben Ficklin Road.
Morning, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. Our conditional use for Campbell is to allow an animal kennel, which in this case is pet daycare, indoor overnight boarding, a pet retail store, and pet grooming. So it's basically a pet facility that's going to have multiple services. It's on 2.5 acres. Some of you may know this was the former Farmer's Daughter site before they moved. It's at Ben Ficklin Road in West Loop 306 in District 1, Tommy Hebert, in the Country Club neighborhood. The current land use, future land use is neighborhood, and the current zoning is heavy commercial CH. So this is looking west and northwest, and east and southwest. Southeast, you've got some industrial storage facilities to the north, and then as you go east, some more commercial. So it's a kind of a mixed area. There's an AEP easement that's about 100 feet wide separating to the south, and then you've got some residential development past there. Now this is looking north entry to the property, south entry. There is a maintenance barn at the back of the property. Just going to pull up the concept plan provided by the applicant. So what they're planning to do is take the existing building that was a retail shell, turn that into the retail store, and that would be their first phase of development. So there won't be any, the applicants here as well, I believe, but the first phase would just be to allow retail and sell high-end pet products. And then over time, they would add a fenced area in the green, and that would be your indoor boarding, a dog run area. So all of the dogs would be boarded inside. The applicant had said probably starting with 10 to 12 dogs. They could also use or build another building in the future. If they did, they'd have to come back and revise their site plan. So retail in here, indoor boarding in this red building, and then an outdoor dog run area. They don't directly abut residential, so there was no requirement for a fence, but staff, just given the fact that even though there's 100 feet, it's close enough to the residential area, so we are requiring a 6-foot-high privacy fence along the south property line, and that will be a condition of approval. So overall, staff is recommending approval of the business. We believe the impacts will be minimized through the conditions of approval. So the requirement for a 6-foot-high privacy fence, the dog run area that won't have to be opaque as well, but it'll have to be fully screened with at least a 6-foot-high fence so the dogs can't just get out and run around. The parking area at the front can accommodate about 12 vehicles. We want that striped with the one disabled parking space, so they'll have to do that. Submit a revised concept plan between now and the time of permitting. There is a barn building at the back that you can't see it here, but there's some storage on the AEP easement that shouldn't be there because it's not their property that farmer's daughter's been using, so they'll have to remove that as well as a condition of approval, just clean up the site. We believe it's consistent with the zoning ordinance. The underlying zoning is CH. If we leave it as CH, it's close to residential, could be a lot worse. We could get industrial storage, equipment storage, some welding and things of that nature that are not really compatible. Luckily, farmer's daughter was in there, and it was a landscape business, so it was kind of the lowest end of the CH. We believe that the special use to allow the dog business with appropriate conditions would be better than what could go in there. And again, they'll have to provide the parking. Compatibility with the surrounding area, we believe this will provide a transition between the heavy commercial uses to the north and east and the residents to the south. With the privacy fence and the 100-foot easement, we believe that will be fine. We didn't put a condition for noise because it's already governed by the city's noise ordinance. So they can't have any dogs barking after 10:30 or before 7 a.m. anyway. All those dogs have to be indoor, and the applicant has agreed to make sure, and we'll have that. That's in the caption anyway. It's only indoor boarding. They cannot have outdoor. Obviously, during the day, there's going to be some dogs barking, but that's like any business. They'll go out, run around in the dog run area, and then go back inside. Effects on natural environment. Some of the letters that came in, I've passed those out. So they talked about noise. We've talked about that now, the noise ordinance. They also mentioned the feces, what will happen. And then just like any other household or any other kennel business, dogs poop, the owner will pick it up in the dog run area, and it should not be outside. So if there is any issues at that point, or there's smells or odors, we can address that, but we're confident that the owner will be responsible in that regard. The third issue was traffic. 10 to 12 dogs, like I said, at the most would go in there. The retail is the question mark. But again, if this stays CH or it was rezoned to CG, there's going to have retail anyway. There's going to be some traffic. We believe that traffic will be minimal. If it's dog boarding, dog owners will drop off their dogs, get back in their car and go. So we don't believe this would be like a Chick-fil-A or a very high-intense business. Community need, the applicant provided some statistics. $73.56 million were spent on pets in the U.S. in 2018. Obviously, we don't have those figures for St. Angelo, but we do believe a lot of the businesses that we had researched, there's some high-end, there's some low-end, but this would be catered to a high-end market. So you'd have, pet toys, pet food, those things of that nature. They'd have their own dog suites, so they wouldn't just be in cages. They'd actually have their own sections of rooms to be boarded in, so we believe that that's appropriate. And finally, development patterns. The property already has 3 entrances onto Ben Ficklin Road, which is a collector street. connects to 306 and 87. There's no proposed changes to the existing development patterns. So for those reasons, we recommend approval. We had one in favor, and then we've got, since last week, 10 letters in opposition, again, all citing noise, the feces, and traffic. Staff recommends approval of a conditional use to allow the animal kennel with indoor boarding, a pet retail store, pet grooming, and pet daycare in the heavy commercial CH zoning district, subject to the following 7 conditions of approval. So they'll need a change of occupancy for indoor boarding, because it used to be exclusively retail. 6-foot tall privacy fence for the outdoor, just a 6-foot tall fence, doesn't have to be opaque, for the outdoor run area, and then a 6-foot tall opaque privacy fence along the south property line. Submit a revised concept plan to staff showing the parking and driveways. Make sure they dispose of feces on a daily basis. Any lighting shall be shielded with no spillover glare onto adjacent properties. And then remove the barn and the equipment that's on the AEP property. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments?
Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? All right, thank you. We're going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please come forward, state your name.
Roger Ellison. I live on Sun Valley, which is 2 streets over from the proposal. I love dogs, but I'm concerned about the noise. Excuse me, Jeff. My concern is that the dogs have been told they can't bark between 10 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning. My concern is during the day. I know these are smart dogs. This is the concern. Dogs bark, and the dogs next door start to bark. And the dogs in my neighborhood hear a siren, and they start howling. And the dogs next door start barking. And I spend my days out of doors. And when these dogs are out in the play area, they're going to bark. And the neighborhood is just going to be dogs barking, dogs. So I'm concerned about the noise. I appreciate what you do. I wouldn't do your job for love nor money. But I hope you will not approve this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison.
Good morning. I'm Ted Logan. I just finished a house over on Becker Lane, which is only about 200 feet from this property, or 300 basically. You've got the depth of the property across the street. I'm building my own personal house right adjacent to that on Becker. And again, you know, this starts out as a small deal where there are 10 to 12 dogs. I can imagine 100 dogs over there in a period of 2 years maybe. But like Roger was saying, the barking, how you control that, I don't know that it can be, especially during the daylight hours. And I'm concerned about, you know, how they're boarding them inside. Are they going to get such an overflow that, you know, they let a few stay outside in covered areas or something? You know, how that's controlled is kind of a scary element. But the noise factor, I think, is something that's going to be real hard to keep the dogs from, you know, making the other dogs in the neighborhood anxious all day long, which kind of concerns me. Right now, we have a very peaceful area, very little noise. We still have some wildlife coming through periodically, which is nice. We want that to maintain. So we just feel like, you know, this probably won't be conducive to more residential development, and there are to the existing. And this property is a little bit higher than Becker and Sun Valley. I'm not sure a 6-foot fence would be adequate. I think we might look at an 8, just the fact that you can nearly probably see into that property, you know, if they take out the brush area for where I am. So anyway, I'd like to see you consider voting against this.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. I'm Buzz Wotek. This is Jenny Campbell. Jenny is the main proprietor of this project. We would like to address a couple of the concerns that these people have come up with. One is that we would really like to see, rather than the privacy fence, at least for right now, along the property line, is we will have a fence around the area where the dogs will be running and playing. And we'd just like to make that the privacy fence, at least for now, because we kind of look at this as a blank canvas. We're not exactly sure where this little venture is going to go. We think it will grow. We would like to see 100 dogs in 2 years, but I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, we would actually like to see you guys give us the option to make the privacy fence back up to the this area here is where we see building the dog run fence, the retainment fence, if you will, and make that the privacy fence, 6-foot opaque privacy fence for at least for now. If we decide to encompass more of the area later, then we would come back to you guys and revisit that. The landlord has agreed to clean up the right-of-way and get the storage barn removed that is on the right-of-way, and they think they will have that done by the end of the year.
Sir, I just wanted to address your comment about moving the privacy fence. I think the reason we wanted it to the south, in order also to protect the neighbors, but if you decide to expand later, let's say you needed to add a building, you'd have to come back anyway and submit a revised plan. You wouldn't have to rip up that fence and then build a second fence. That's why we did sort of the goal was a win-win for everybody.
Well, we probably wouldn't replace that fence, but
Okay.
it would also address concern that Mr. Logan had, is the property is a little higher, and that part is even higher, so it would actually do more good for them if the fence was up closer to where the activity is going to be.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone have questions? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Billy Langley. Live on Sun Valley Lane, right across the street from Mr. Ellison. I'd like to voice the same concerns about noise. We moved there about 5 years ago, and I think any business like this is only wanting to grow, as they stated. 10 to 12 dogs, they're looking to make money off of this deal, so they're only wanting to expand how many dogs that they're going to be able to put there. I've had experience working at an animal shelter. Any of those types of operations are looking to just grow further and further. To think 10 to 12 dogs is going to be the only amount of boarded animals is ridiculous. I think even if you put them in a pole barn, a metal barn at night, if you've ever been inside a kennel, a pole barn, for 9 months in the winter, I cleaned cages in a kennel like this. It's deafening. I wore earplugs. I wore music in my, in my ears to try and get over it. We can hear the football games. We can hear the stadium from Sun Valley Lane. And every dog in the neighborhood is just going to go nuts. So I would just really urge you to not approve this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Good morning.
My name's Dana Larson. I live at 1455 Becker Lane. I'd like to state first that I am an animal lover, and I do also support women in business. So I currently oppose this development primarily because I don't feel that basic requirements have been met here. This property is also 3 lots from the Concho River. I think there are some environmental impacts that haven't been addressed. I don't know how the disposal will be carried out, but most of the properties here are on septic systems. Also, a lot of the properties have water wells, not for drinking, but for irrigation. I would like to see some plans for the feces disposal. I also would ask that perhaps not a full-blown environmental impact study be carried out, but at least some further assessments of drainage from this facility. You know, the kennel is a good idea. I think there's some soundproofing options that could be explored that are not out of reach expense-wise. This is not a commercial area. I mean, there's just one environmental lab. The rest of the businesses are pretty much vacant most of the time. And there also needs to be more of a traffic study. This location's on a blind curve. I mean, in the presentation, you could see the arrows indicating that curve. And I just, you know, I'm worried about dog walking on that street if that occurs. It's not safe. It's a very narrow two-way road. Another concern is the insecticides. I don't see any kind of planning for spraying for fleas and ticks and flies, and there could be some issues with leaching into the groundwater there. The water table is very shallow, say 30 feet from the surface. I don't have anything against this property development, but I do think that there needs to be some further requirements prior to approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larson.
Good morning. I'm Ramona Miller. I also am a resident on Sun Valley Lane. Gosh, a lot of what is said here today has even gotten my ire up a little bit more. You don't think these things through. Number one, noise. I'm not going to keep going about that. But we wish nothing but good things for small businesses here in San Angelo. In fact, we need more of that. That's what we're built upon. But I just went ahead and just looked at some of the existing locations of the existing kennels here in town. And, you know, I'm just going to name a few. I'm not familiar with all of these, but out on Fairview School Road, way out removed from any housing that is in direct contact with that. We've got something out toward Christoval on 277, the New Bark. Of course, Country Club for Dogs, which is not too far from where we are, just right on Ratliff Road. Way out on 2105, Have a Heart boarding kennel. We've got the Dog House, where I take my dogs to, way the heck out there on Arden Road. One I did think about was the Green Meadow Veterinary Hospital right there, which is by McDonald's. And I'm thinking, how is that surviving in a residential area? And then I kind of drove by there and checked it out. It's apartment complexes. So people aren't worried because, people are in and out. They're there a year, they're gone. It's no big deal to those people. But for someone who's living on Sun Valley Lane, who is retired, and I enjoy being out in the country, somewhat, out in the country. I'm just a little nervous about the constant day in, day out bark fest going on. Because I know, as Mr. Ellison stated, we have wild animals. We had a porcupine come to our backyard a couple of nights ago. Well, my dog started barking, so I immediately take them inside. Then those neighbors' dogs bark, and it's just crazy. And the thought of that going on day in and day out, 24/7, just kind of makes me ill. It makes me sick to my stomach. So, and I am aware, and I read the the plan for this, and it was very well written. So kudos to Mrs. Campbell. And I enjoyed reading about their business mission. And I do agree that things are changing with our pets, with the humanization, the trends that are driving our industry. So I guess my question is, if people are willing to spend big bucks on their pets, wouldn't they be willing to drive a few more miles down the road at an alternate location that's not going to have these people that are seemingly against them? I know personally when my dogs start to bark, I want to get them in because I do not want to upset the apple cart in the neighborhood. And I feel a little nervous for that business because these dogs will bark and the neighborhood apple cart will be upset. So we're just asking that you think about, would you like this in your backyard? I think the answer is probably the same as ours. So thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you.
Morning, I'm Stacy Elkins. I live on Sun Valley Lane. I do have dogs, and like my neighbors have said, all of our dogs bark, but we are very considerate of each other and make sure that if our dogs are barking and it's causing a noise issue, that we bring them inside. My dogs stay outside all day during the day, and with a dog kennel that's close by and possible barking going on in the middle of the day, my dogs will go nuts. And I'm not there to make sure that that is possible, to bring them inside. My neighbors do alert me sometimes when it is a problem, and I do go and take my dogs and bring them inside, but I think the noise issue for the rest of the neighborhood is just as bad with a dog kennel. I do appreciate the type of business that she wants to bring in. I don't see any problem with that, especially a local business, small business. But in the neighborhood that we are in, I don't think it's the right fit. When Farmer's Daughter was there was traffic issues, I think, with their trailers and their equipment. I don't see a traffic issue with her business. The unsightliness that Farmer's Daughter had with some of their equipment and storage of materials was bad and still is bad and could be cleaned up. But the whole issue for us in our neighborhood is just the noise issue. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. All right. Anyone have any thoughts? I was struck by Ms. Miller's comments. There was a case last month that came before this commission that I was not present when that case was presented, but it was a restaurant and bar concept on I believe it was on Sunset
Green Meadow,
Green
and
Meadows,
Southwest,
very close to that McDonald's. So I was speaking with someone a few weeks ago about that case. They were sharing their thoughts with me, and they said that they went to the McDonald's. McDonald's had opposed the the restaurant and bar concept, I believe in part because of the noise. And this person said they pulled into the parking lot of the McDonald's and could hear nothing but dogs barking. So it is, and it's the kennel that's proximal to that McDonald's. So that, to me, that's clearly the greatest concern that everyone that's spoken has is the noise that's created by this type of use. I don't know how we prevent that noise from happening, but I'd be open to ideas or suggestions. This property is really close to residential lots, and so they're going to be impacted having a dog kennel so close to their properties.
I think this property is a challenge.
Absolutely.
I mean, I live on the north end of town in what you'd call I'm not in town. I'm on the far edge of it. I live in Green Acres, but I also listen to a pipe yard down the road from 2105.
Yes.
I hear it Sunday morning, at 10 o'clock in the morning. But, they said they have dogs as well.
Yes.
Yet those bark, but that's okay. I understand their concerns, and it's a challenge, and this property's a challenge because you're not going to build houses there either. So something needs to go in there, but maybe some homework on Miss Campbell's part, maybe working with the residents to maybe help them understand in the future. I don't know.
Anyone else have thoughts or wish to make a motion? Or ask more questions?
Wanted to just make one addition.
Sure.
The applicant had mentioned it to us before, and when she came up, condition number 7, the applicant shall remove their existing maintenance barn and equipment stored, adding and giving them until the end of the calendar year.
Yes.
And not tied to the change of occupancy, just to allow them some more additional time to make sure that they can do that in case they want to pull a permit now for this building and start their business. They wouldn't be stuck. You
Okay.
could say until the end, or December 31st, or whatever you want to do in your motion, if you decide to approve it.
So what happens if December 31st passes and that building's not down? Then what do we do?
Maybe a question for legal. In the past, we would have code compliance to send them a letter, but I don't know if that nullifies the approval.
Yeah, no, they would be in violation of the zoning ordinance, and so we would start code enforcement procedures.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I think it's important that everybody knows this whichever decision we make will go to city council ultimately, and it
No,
won't.
a conditional use, you are the final deciding authority. If you make either way, it could be appealed to city council, but you are the ultimate decision makers on conditional uses.
Well, for all parties involved know that it can be appealed to city council. So we don't have the last word. With that being said, I make the motion to deny the conditional use located at 5433 Ben Ficklin Road.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the change of use or the conditional use. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 6-0. All right, CU 1914, Gonzalez. Public hearing and consideration of request for approval of a conditional use to allow for a religious institution in the two-family RS2 zoning district being .23 acres located at 103 and 107 West 14th Street.
Okay. So this is a conditional use to allow a religious institution, a church, at 103 and 107 West 14th Street, which are currently vacant. It's in District 4, Lucy Gonzalez, and it's in the Blackshear neighborhood on 0.23 acres. The future land use is neighborhood, and the zoning is two-family residential RS2. So this is a predominantly residential area. There was a conditional use that was approved a few years back to the west, I'll show you on the map in a minute, the Church of the Bread of Life, that came through you all and was approved on December 17th, 2018. And that's also next to a funeral home. So predominantly residential, but there are some religious and other institutional uses in the area already. This is looking north, and this is west, east, south of the subject property. So there is some fencing along here and here as well, but predominantly it's a vacant site. This is looking west of the subject property. Here's the existing church. This is about 2 blocks down to the west on 14th Street that was approved by you all last year. So the new church, as proposed, will be approximately 2,016 square feet. The applicant has an existing church at 601 East 34th Street, which is very far north, wanted to move it a little bit south, just try to get more of their clientele, and they found this property. So this is the proposed site plan. The current parking section in the zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space for every 4 patron seats. So depending on how many seats they have, so they've got 9 parking spaces here, so that would allow up to 36 feet in this building. The impacts, so staff is recommending approval. We believe the impacts will be minimal. Will require 6-foot-high privacy fencing along the south and west property lines to provide screening from the adjacent residences. That's required as well by zoning. Consistent with the zoning ordinance, the development will comply with all of the RS2 zoning standards. They will be required to show a 20-foot rear setback. The south end of the building is about 5 feet back right now. We measured based on their site plan. They'd have to basically push that building out 15 feet. They'd still have enough room for most of that parking area, so they should be all right to do that. We believe it's compatible with the surrounding area. As mentioned, there is another church that was approved a couple years ago. No effect on the natural environment. At the time they go to put in their parking lot through the permitting process, we'll look at grading and drainage at that time. We believe there's a community need. This is a residential area. Residential areas are suitable with appropriate conditions through the conditional use process for churches to service those areas. And the development patterns, we don't anticipate any proposed changes. The lots were already platted. We are making a condition to prohibit any access off of North Irving, which is a very narrow street, and as a local road, 14th is a collector street that goes from MLK to Chadburn, so it makes sense, and their site plan shows the only access off of 14th. We'd like to keep it like that. 23 notices were mailed out. We didn't receive any in favor or in opposition. Staff's recommendation is to approve a conditional use to allow a religious institution in the RS2 zoning district on the subject properties, subject to the 5 conditions of approval. Submit a revised concept plan showing a 20-foot rear yard setback. That's from the south property line. Submit a landscape plan. And this would just, staff can work with the applicant on this, just possibly some xeriscaping, maybe some trees, depending on how much space we had, but just to beautify the site a bit. We are requiring a sidewalk along West 14th Street with a ramp. There are a presence of sidewalks as you go east and west. Some of them don't meet the current 4-foot wide standard, but at least there is a presence, and we'd like to have that for pedestrians in that area. No access from North Irving Street, we talked about, and then any lighting would be shielded. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case, please come forward. I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
What's required from them for the landscape plan?
We wanted to leave this open, just given we've done this before as a condition of approval at this point, and just have the conditional use. But I would think that, because of the location of the sidewalk, it's hard to determine. But based on the the right-of-way widths, possibly planting a few trees, or as a minimum would just be some xeriscaping, so having some, some trees or shrubs along there, maybe some river walk just to cover that.
Yeah, if we put a couple of trees in the front, it would help break up the fact that this is more of a commercial size building. It's kind of oriented a little different. So if it has some sort of shrubbery around the facility, or maybe a couple trees, it would just help it blend in a little bit better with the surrounding residential. So we weren't thinking, a full landscape plan, just something showing us maybe a couple trees or maybe some shrubs around the building. We've done this with a couple of other churches and or schools, where just a little bit to help minimize the impacts of the adjacent residential, to kind of, if you see most of the homes in that area, they have some sort of trees or shrubbery, so it just kind of makes it blend in a little bit better.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as proposed by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Street name change. City Council has final authority for approval of street name changes. La Cruz Street to Trinidad Street. A request to rename La Cruz Street over a 2,067-foot length of street right-of-way beginning at Knickerbocker Road, continuing south to the terminus at the intersection of West Avenue W.
Sherry Bailey once again. As you indicated, this is over 2,067 linear feet for La Cruz Street. The requested name change is to go to Trinidad Street. It is in District 3, Mr. Thomas's district, and it is in the Rio Vista neighborhood. Future land use, just to give you an idea, is neighborhood center and still residential neighborhood along most of the street. And the present zoning does have it as single family, for most of it commercial up near Knickerbocker. The proposed name change, there are three, let me back up for just a minute, because the city's ordinance for a street name change request is fairly general. As the introduction indicated, it does go to you for a recommendation, then it goes to City Council for final approval. There are three rationale that we examine when a name change request comes in. The first is whether it or not it will be confusing to motorists and people who live in the area. Going back to it's a fairly straight street. The only real confusing area is Dalton and Cunningham, both where there's like 3 streets, 4 streets, and 5 streets on a star coming in together. And presently, the fact that La Cruz has been there for over 50 years, people are used to that name. So there would be a time period in which people would have to get used to the new name. The second examination is whether or not there is a name change that is similar or exactly like the Trinidad. The closest we could come up with is Trinity Street, and some people felt that that was fairly close in the sound of it, but we could not find anything in the city that would compete with the Trinidad name. And the third consideration is whether when the request comes in, is it being requested to honor somebody who has contributed to the community, what that contribution is, whether or not it is confusing to surrounding people. If people are supportive of the name change, we take all of that into consideration. And we did include some consideration in some cities is that it needs to be a deceased member, the person that they want to name it after. We do not have that requirement in our ordinance, and we, as an example, we have on the ASU campus, they did request a street name change for a coach that is living. Staff looked at the request, and you have that in the packet that's handed out to you, and it was in the staff report. The church wants to name this after their pastor. They believe that he has done a lot of good work in the city, and this is their way of recognizing the work that he has done. We sent out 44 notices. We received 1 in favor. We received 13 in opposition, and those are indicated on the map, and you have copies in front of you. Staff is recommending denial of the proposed street name change from La Cruz Street to Trinidad Street. The main reason behind that is most of the property owners who actually have property that front La Cruz Street sent in objections, and you have those, as I indicated. However, if you do choose to recommend that it be approved, staff does have a couple of conditions that we would recommend. Are there any questions?
Yes, could you go back to the applicant? I don't see the case or the application that was made. Why this street?
The church, let me go back and, I'm sorry, the church actually does not front on La Cruz.
Where is the church?
The church is about in that area.
Okay.
It does not front on La Cruz. It actually fronts on another street. But this is a direct street that comes in. It services that area, and it services that church. Okay. And it has frontage out on Knickerbocker, and I think that was one of the reasons that the applicants were wanting to use that street.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for the staff? Thank you.
And just for clarification real quick, the green on this map, or the map that she was just on, the green actually has property frontage onto the street. That's why we made this delineation just for our reference.
Yes.
The blue is just the 200 feet. So if you see the green on this map, those actually at some point, their properties do touch the street.
Okay. All right, we're going to open it up for public comment. I would like to limit public comment to 2 minutes if we could. Yes. If you would, please state your name.
Good morning. My name's Juanita Ibarra, and I have a home at 2437 La Cruz Street, and I have owned this home for over 42 years. I have had my kids there, my children, my grandchildren, and I know my neighbors. And we have pulled ourselves through many, many hurdles on this street. So this is a street that has been in our area for many, many years. It was here probably before I got here. But the reason why I do not want this street to be changed to Trinidad is because these people from this church, I have gone to this church like maybe a few times to get free bread. Okay, they said that the pastor does a lot for the community, for everybody. Well, he hasn't done anything for me or for my family or my neighbors. The bread that we get from there, or if it's a vegetable or a fruit, it doesn't come from him. It comes from the stores, from House and Angelo, H-E-B, Walmart. They come from the farmers.
Okay.
They come from King Food. They don't come from him. He doesn't buy them. This person does not bake them. So why should we change our food, our street to his name?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
And the other thing is, if they want to change the street name, why not change their church name?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning.
My husband has a house on 2621 La Cruz for 42 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't want it to change to Trinidad, that's all.
Can
Okay.
you state your name?
Yes, please
Can you
state your name.
your name for the record?
Ignacio C. Luna.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we have, it's rented, and the people that they're been there for 5 years,
Yes, ma'am.
and they don't want their kids to change the Social Security and everything.
Understand.
Because she's going to stay there. She wants to stay, longer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Silvia Reyes Rodriguez, and I live at 2402 La Cruz Street. I've lived there since I was 2 years old. It was my parents' house, so I inherited after they died. But even before that, it was La Cruz Street. Not 50 years, but maybe in the 1930s, something like that, when my parents bought that house. Now, the church wants it changed to the pastor's name, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But like my neighbor said, he hasn't done anything for the community. And they give stale bread.
Okay.
And I took my cousin, he's a veteran over there, and he wanted some sweet bread. Well, they had all the bread all hidden. Because they take first choice.
Okay.
Yeah. And another thing is, are they willing to pay for all the transfers that are going to happen?
Right.
Our water, they always charge for everything.
Yes, ma'am. We
Are
understand.
they willing to pay for that too?
Okay.
But I've lived there about 66 years. 64 years. And my grandchildren grew up there, my children.
Yes, ma'am.
And my parents died in those houses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I went over.
My name is Deborah Lombraña, and I'm just going to make it quick. I've probably being one of the youngest, has lived there the less time, 30 years, at 2130 La Cruz. Deborah Lombraña again, 30 years. And so I kind of started the petition and walked around the neighborhood and visited with some of these who have been there. I gave you guys a list of how
Yes,
many
ma'am.
years because I wanted you guys to know.
Yes.
And so I just, my thing was more for the elderly. I can get around and get my driver's license changed and all that good stuff, but I was more concerned with the people who are way older, doesn't mean in an ugly way, to have to change their Social Security and checks to come in and bank
Yes, ma'am.
statements and water and that sort of thing. And so
Wow.
that's why I wanted to keep our name, like I said, mainly for these older folks. It was going to cause a lot of inconvenience for them to have to change this kind of stuff. Also, I was going to suggest to the church, it sits on Avenue T, so I kind of didn't understand why they wanted to change Avenue T. 530 West Avenue T, I believe, is the church address, but yet they were trying to change La Cruz, which runs
Side
this
street.
way.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also, their church is nice, and it's got a very big social hall, so my suggestion to them was to honor the social hall and maybe give it his name.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's all I'm going to keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nora Varquera, and I also live on La Cruz Street, and I've lived there my whole life. My parents have owned that property for at least 49 years, And I strongly oppose the change. I mean, I just don't see the benefit other than causing a big inconvenience because I would have to change all of my legal documents. I can't even start to think where to start. And the thing is, I don't have time for all of that. Plus, I have to take care of all of my parents' paperwork also. So that would be a tremendous amount of work. And, I mean, I just don't see the benefit. I don't understand the why. I mean, they do, like they mentioned, they have a very nice hall in the back. They can call that Trinidad Hall. They can call one of their parking lots Trinidad Hall. I mean, I'm sure he does a lot of good, and I appreciate it, but I strongly oppose it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to close public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Please come up. If you. Yes, ma'am.
Today to talk about Pastor Trinidad. My name's Mary Barrera, and I'm the treasurer there at Segunda Iglesia, and I'm also a member of the administrative committee there. And this month was Pastor Appreciation Month. That's why this came up. We thought, how can we appreciate our pastor because he's done so many things. And none of these people that were here, they all had good comments and everything, but I know they're not members of our church, just like, you know, the rest of y'all aren't. So I kind of wanted to give y'all just a quick run-by of some of the things that he's done that y'all might not know about that he's done in our community, and it's good to have finally a Hispanic person that not only does something for the church, but does something for San Angelo.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you'll give me just a little bit of time. You know, as y'all know, we've had several inclement weathers, like in Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and so forth, and families have come to San Angelo, and he's implemented a program there at church where these people who come with degrees and all kinds of different qualifications, they can't work here in San Angelo because they don't know how to speak English, how to write an application or anything. And so he implemented a program to where we show them how to speak and write English and how to fill out an application. He also he implemented free teaching classes to teach them how to speak English. I think I mentioned that. And if they don't have college degrees or even a GED, he helps them get that. Then he also started a kindergarten class at Segunda Iglesia for children who are less fortunate than others and don't have a good first start. Some of them come from abused homes, and there are different types of homes. Some of them are well-to-do homes, not as well-to-do homes and so forth, but we provide a clean, relaxing atmosphere where they can learn without any interruptions. He also started 3 ministries.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I know. I won't go into all the ministries
ma'am.
because
Thank
I
you.
wanted to, but I did want to tell you that he's done more than just be a pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
He's been there for the community, and I'd hate for somebody to have to pass away in order to get a street named after him.
Yes.
And the reason we don't want the fellowship hall named Trinidad is because someone recently died, and we've already put steps into place to name that after that person that
Okay.
passed away.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And thank y'all very much.
All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or comments or questions or wish to make a motion?
Motion to deny as written.
Okay?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to deny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right, right-of-way abandonments. City Council has final authority for approval of right-of-way abandonments. Street and alley right-of-way abandonments, Angelo Christian Ministries, a request to approve the abandonment and vacation of approximately 2.378 acres of land that includes portions of Houston, Dallas, and alleys between blocks 77, 78, 86 of the Hatcher Addition, generally located between West Houston Hart Expressway Frontage Road, Millspaw Street, Freeland Avenue, and Howe Street.
Morning again, Planning Commissioners, Jeff Fisher. The applicant is Angelo Christian Ministries. They have TLC Church over in this location here, and they also own almost all of the land in this area here. A lot of these streets and alleys were not developed ever, and so they sat there with an old plat that's almost 80 years old. Now that they own all of this land, they want to abandon some of these unpaved and undeveloped streets and alleys for further expansion in the future. The applicant is here for further questions after. They haven't indicated exactly what that will be at this time. They have put some additional parking out there. They've got some buses parked, but this would just allow them to develop in the future. Last year, you all had approved, through Planning Commission and then the City Council, a rezoning for this area. So everything north of Block 86 was rezoned to CG, and then Block 86 was zoned to a CO. So it's zoned for commercial. They will, as a condition of approval, would have to replat those abandoned portions with the existing lots into a larger piece. So that would be a condition today. This is in District 5, Lane Carter, in the Bluffs neighborhood, and it's located between the Houston Hart Expressway Frontage Road to the north, Howe Street to the west, Freeland to the south, and Millspaw to the east. Staff sent out notifications for all abutting properties and within 200 feet. We also put notice signs along Alexander here and here. We have not received any responses in opposition. We got one letter in support from the owner of the property. The current future land use is neighborhood north of Dallas, and then south is, transitional north of Dallas, and then neighborhood south of Dallas. And here's the CG and the CO zoning. So this is the area to be abandoned. So you've got Dallas Street that's never been developed, this portion of Dallas, Houston Street, and then the alleys between 77, 78, and 86. So this is Dallas Street looking east. So it is a caliche surface right now, but it's never been developed. And this is looking west towards the church. This is looking Block 86 south. I eventually put up this second sign as well. This is Block 77. So staff is recommending approval based on the following, and this is generally our 4 criteria we look at for right-of-way abandonments. We don't believe the traffic patterns will be affected, even though the existing streets and alleys are unimproved. They've already got Alexander and Howe Street. Most of the church traffic and the residents in that area to the south would still continue to use those streets as they've been doing now, so there shouldn't be any changes to traffic. Utilities, AEP is going to want a 15-foot wide unobstructed utility easement. That could be provided in any city water and sewer easements at the time of platting, so we could work that out later. We don't believe there's any community impact. Again, all the notices were sent within 200 feet. That included the abutting property owners of those alleys and streets, and within the 200-foot circle, we didn't receive any responses, and the 2 signs were posted. Staff does see a public benefit in this case if we leave the streets and alleys open. 54 of the 58 properties are already owned by the applicant, so I should say that in the reverse, there's no negative impact on the public if we close those streets because the applicant owns most of those properties anyway. The 3 abutting property owners that are in this area, I'm just going to go back really quickly to the map. So I think it's Parkview Church owns this piece here. There's a property owner that owns 2 up here and then 1 over here. The applicant, I understand, had contacted or had attempted to contact those neighbors We haven't received any responses. So if this gets approved, our real estate division would send letters out, and they would have the right to buy their incremental half abutting those streets and alleys. If they don't, it would revert to the applicant. The applicant would pay whatever the assessment formula is for those pieces. So we haven't received any opposition, so we'd like to go forward to council if you all approve this today for a final vote. So again, 14 notices were mailed out. One in favor from the applicant, none in opposition. This concludes staff's presentation. Approval of the proposed vacation and abandonment. The total acreage is 2.378 acres of the land. That includes portions of Houston, Dallas, and east-west alleys between Block 77, 78, and 86 of the Hatcher Addition, generally located between West Houston Hart, Mill Spa, Freeland, and House Street, subject to the 5 conditions of approval. Just read those in quick. So pay the assessment formula, record the quitclaim deed, obtain a subdivision replat, so all of those abandoned pieces would go in, dedicate any obstructed utility easements as part of the replat. And the 5th one was just install new driveway approaches prior to the quitclaim deed. They have an existing church building on one of the properties that has a driveway on Dallas Street. Well, if Dallas gets closed, they'll have to reorient the driveway. So we've let them know that as well. So those are the 5 conditions. So this concludes the presentation now. Any questions or comments?
Anyone questions? No?
The people that have property in there, they wouldn't be, they'd still have access in some form, wouldn't they?
That's correct. So the property owner up here would still have access off of House Street and their driveway. That wouldn't change. The one up here is undeveloped. It's just a little triangle sliver. So, and then Parkview Church would continue to have access off Freeland.
Yep.
So why would a quitclaim deed be required?
That transfers the land from basically the streets and the alleys, even though they're abutting the property owner, they're owned by the city. So the city has no interest in them other than those utility easements that would have to be provided. So we have to quitclaim, basically release our, transfer the ownership to the property owner.
Okay. Anyone else with questions for Mr. Fisher? Thank you, sir. We're going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning. I'm Pastor Don Crabtree. I rise today in favor of this proposal as representative of Angelo Christian Ministries and the Life Church. And just for the record, the little pie-shaped piece up here at the top, we have secured the transferal of that, and it has been filed with Tom Green County. We do have 2 lots here that we don't, I should say there are 2 lots that we do not own there. Should not affect their access whatsoever. Houston Street at that point is non-existent. There's not even a saw cut in the curb or anything there. Their access would not be limited. Parkview Church over here, their access would not be limited at all. They do have a dumpster sitting back here, which is not very pretty, but it's there. And we do have, we were not aware, we do have already abandonment on Guthrie, 1 block of Guthrie, and we do have a quitclaim on that also. So I concur that is required. We were not even aware that had been done, but by virtue of owning both lots on either side, because it had already been abandoned, it was transferred to Angelo Christian Ministries as well. Staff had recommended early on that we do a PD on this property, and I came prior and discussed that with the Planning Commission. We have so many moving parts here, and what we're really trying to do here is put this all back together so that we can better plan the future for the church. We do have in this block right here, we do have a playground presently. There's obviously some ideas for parking, perhaps some more sports facility, but it's all church related, and we're just trying to put it all together. The property that Mr. Fisher had in question is a parsonage right here in this lot, and access is really not going to change so much there, because if we do take this block of Dallas in, it remains church property, and so I'm not really sure that I fully understand the concept of changing the driveway for that parsonage, because nothing changes there for us. But we do ask that you consider our proposal today, and we're working closely with SKG on getting this prepared to replat so that we can actually, we're kind of walking this PD backwards, I guess you could say, and so we're just trying to get a master plan going, and we can't really do any of that until we have it all replatted and secured. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case, please come forward. I'm going to close public comment. Anyone want to share thoughts or make a motion?
Jeff, can you put up the recommendation slide?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as proposed by the city staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Text amendments. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Amendments to the Land Development Subdivision Ordinance, Chapters 1, 9, and 10 to create administrative exemption for reduced street standards in infill areas to address circumstances where streets are built out and to clarify that missing infrastructure is the responsibility of the property owner and/or developer of the property.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. We've been talking about some of these changes for a while now. This is basically, this piece of this is intended to address largely infill development. So in areas, and you've seen these over and over, we saw some today, how do we treat existing streets, existing developed areas where somebody's just reorienting a few lots or that sort of thing. Technically, under our current ordinance, that triggers that portion of the street in front of those properties to be built to the full city standard as the current standard. So, you know, if it's 26 feet or if it's 32 feet, they're required to build to 40 feet. And so you guys see those variances almost every month. This would allow an administrative process where both the planning director and the city engineer can agree to allow a narrower street in certain circumstances without that having to come to you all as a variance. I should say, separate from this, we're also looking at modifying our street standards. We've taken some discussions about that as well to the Development Task Force. That will be coming back to you all soon for consideration. So this is not that. This is not the reduced street standards in some circumstances, but this is effectively a variance that can be approved by staff. I won't read through all of these different circumstances on the screen, but it's, again, it's basically intended to allow for minor redevelopment in those infill areas without triggering the full street approval. It also addresses an area existing, a city-constructed street. We have streets, you saw a replat on Bell Street, for example. Well, the city has spent $18 million reconstructing Bell Street. Technically, it's narrower than what a brand-new arterial street would have to be constructed to. And so technically, by our current ordinance, if you replat on that, it triggers a widening of that street because it's officially substandard. That's a circumstance I think we all agree. The city has gone out and built a street for a particular width, and it doesn't make any sense to widen a portion of that. So again, that's another example of where this would allow an administrative exception to those street widths. This is the list of the standards that can be modified. Again, an existing street can be approved at its current width or some lesser width than what the full standard would be for that particular type of street. This can also apply to a new street. Generally, that would only be in an infill area where it's in an existing neighborhood where all of the streets are substandard. This could allow an extension of one of those substandard streets to be extended at that same width. We've seen some of those recently in that Lakeview area where, for example, the existing street's 32 feet. Well, it doesn't always make sense to have that next street, the next block over, be at 40 feet. That would allow a continuation of that 32-foot street. Now, in no case, based partly on the fire code, but other reasons, in no case would this allow a street to be continued less than 26 feet. So in any case, this would not give staff the authority to approve a street less than 26. And that's already a limitation on you all. Under our ordinance, you can't approve a street less than 26 foot either. It also allows for us as staff to approve to either waive requirement for curb and gutter or allow a ribbon curb like we talked about in that previous case. So that's an example of where that Mallena Heights plat is one where this process could have applied without having to come to you all for a variance. As I mentioned, it does have to be approved by both the planning director and the city engineer. We both look at it from a little bit different angles. And so if the city engineer sees technical reasons it shouldn't be allowed, then he can basically veto it. If I see from overall planning reasons that it shouldn't be allowed, I can veto it. But in any case, those would come to you all as a variance. So they would always have the ability to request a variance through you all, even if they are denied this administrative exception. It also states in the ordinance something that we've always enforced but has never been in there, and that being that we have some areas where properties were platted but no streets were ever built. This just simply says that you can't go out and build a home, even though it's technically platted. You could go out and get a building permit for it. You do have to construct a street in front of those lots if they were never, say they were platted in 1910 and no street was ever built. That developer or builder is still responsible for that street, or getting a street to that property, as well as as well as water and sewer. It does rename the Chapter 9. That's something we've looked at. Chapter 9 has not only subdivision standards, but it includes standards that apply to development, like through building permits and site plans. And so that just clarifies the title of the chapter to recognize that. And it does one other cleanup. This is kind of unrelated to the rest of it, but in Chapter 10, Section 2, there's like a 2-page list of requirements for submissions, the size of the Mylars, the number of copies you have to submit. It has to have a north arrow and all of those kinds of things. We've been taking those out of the city ordinances and just including them in design manuals. You've seen a couple of ordinance changes like that recently. This just does that for another section of the ordinance, removing it from the ordinance itself. But again, those standards will still be there, but just in the engineer's design manual. I think that's a quick overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay. Are you asking us to make an approval for these changes?
Yes, whether you recommend approval to the city council.
To the city council.
We do need to have a public hearing as well, since it is a change to an ordinance. But yeah, we're asking for your recommendation to the city council for approval of these ordinance changes.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr. Gully. I'm sorry.
Please state your name, sir.
Mr. Question, Russell Gully. Yes, sir.
What's your opinion on this?
We believe, and that's what Eric and I were talking about, we believe this will help and give opportunities for us to go to staff and maybe work some of these things out in advance. And that way we come to you guys and we're hopefully have all agree on, and there's going to be cases where we don't believe it should be as wide and maybe they want it to be, but we believe hopefully as we look at redevelopment and trying to keep it affordable, that this is a way to kind of simplify the process and make meetings and everything go faster, and even allow the developer to kind of know going into and going forward with this, what they're going to have ahead of them, what those improvements are going to be, what we can get to. So we believe that this should be a help and benefit to the whole process.
Great.
Erica Carter with CFE. I do a lot of the infill projects here, and I just wanted to come up and I think this is a great move in the right direction. There's a lot of projects for the infills that we all agree on, but we have to wait for a meeting for them to begin, the process of building. So I feel like this is going to really help move those infill projects along.
I agree. Okay. Well, I think this makes a lot of sense personally. From the cases that we've reviewed over the time that I've been up here, granting variances in areas where we have existing roads that have established widths and to leave that uncertainty through a planning commission meeting, I don't think it's necessary. So I think the proposed changes make a lot of sense, and hopefully they do help kind of streamline things and manage expectations for folks that are looking at infill lots. They know they don't have to get anxious about whether or not they're going to have to widen the road on a street that's well established otherwise. So looks good to me. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Move to approve.
So we're going to move to show our support for these changes. Is that what you'd like, Mr. James?
Yeah, I think the motion would be to
Recommend.
approval of
We
these
recommend
ordinance
approval of
amendments.
these changes?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to recommend the approval of these changes to the city council. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Yes, future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. Monday, the 18th of November in council chambers of the McNeese Convention Center. Anyone wish to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye.